right, everybody, welcome back to the Leadership Ignition Team podcast. I'm one of the co-hosts, Shane Beckham, and along with me is...
I'm Mike Huff. And Shane, what's our topic today?
So, Mike, I wanted to stay kind of in line with what we did the last podcast, which was alignment over arrogance, and just kind of segue that down a little bit further into the January decision point. Because we all know, especially if you're any remotely into the world of fitness, we kind of know what that means. But Mike, I think we can correlate this point even deeper into not just fitness, but a lot of things in our life. So, before we get started, any opening remarks about, maybe what this means to you and thoughts on that?
Yeah, as we talked in the pre-show, to me, it's just simple, right? This fitness ability to continue to meet your obligations is no different than any other obligation, any other promise you make yourself in your day to day. The promise you make to spend more time with your kids, the promise you make to be more present with your significant other, promise you make to not let laziness overtake you at work and you drive harder than everyone else around you. It's great to make the promise, great to make the decision, but then you got to do it. And this is one of the things that I think that this speaks to is the number of people. It's human nature, right? To want to achieve more, but then not to take the effort to do it. And we're going to help today, I think, Shane, talk about what are the various kinds of ways that people avoid taking that extra step and keeping going. A lot of people get started on all of these things. They will start down the path of creating time with their family, whatever, but it fizzles out. And the truth is that whether it's family or whether it's the weights you're moving, the other side's not doing anything. It's up to you to keep the momentum going. And so if you're trusting something else to be reciprocal, like you're going to start to see that effect in the mirror, you're going to start to see the kids reciprocate and ask you for time. It may happen, but that's going to take time. And so people give up before that switch flips, as we often talk about.
Couldn't agree more, sir. And, just kind of kick this off, I want to go back to last week's episode or a couple weeks ago when we did this. One of the things that we talked a lot about is January is loud. It is. And what do we mean by that? It just means January's noisy in the fact talking about personal goals and decisions, meaning that, okay, January 1st was a few weeks back, right? And we all, not maybe we all, but a lot of us at least thought about it. We made certain declarations. We could have had a list of resolutions. The motivation was high leading up to that date because it's just human nature, calendar dates. That's a big one. Everybody's going to reform. Everybody's going to drive change. Everybody's going to make a difference. And we could have made some big, bold promises to ourselves. And not just to ourselves, we could have to our families, to our friends, outward expressions of this is what I'm going to do. So we talked about this in the form of, okay, well, loud confidence does not equal alignment. We know that because alignment comes once you actually start effectively doing the work. So new is always going to feel good, just like a new car. Man, you think about that. How often do you get a new car? It's not annually, some people might, but typically it's you have years go by. So how much do you appreciate that new car smell, right? And you think about that. I do. I mean, hell, they sell scents that smell like it, for Christ's sake. So think about it, though. New always feels good, but new is not sustainable. You can't keep the new car smell. New sounds good when it comes to fitness, but the new wears off. Motivation is real, but discipline is what has to take over, Mike. So the line that I want to make to the opening, and I want to give you this word, and then we can break it down together and go into kind of what it means to us, is if we had a chart on our screen right now called the emotional change cycle, and you could label this chart anything, I would go as far to say this can correlate to any personal decision that you make in life, albeit the gym, work, church, marriage, whatever, emotional change chart. The first thing that I would say, especially since we're in January, it's going to start with uninformed optimism. Okay. That is most often with anything. Even new cars. I have no idea why I'm on this kick, but it's true. It's uninformed optimism, Mike. What when I say uninformed optimism, before I go any further, what does that mean to you?
And it feels like almost everything I do because I'm such an optimist broadly, which is look, that whatever that thing is, that sounds great. I'm going to go do it. And I have not spent the time to figure out what does that process look like? What does it feel like? What challenges am I going to experience along the way? All that's, I don't care about that because I'm so excited about the end game. I'm excited about where I'm going. So that to me feels like uninformed optimism.
No, and I think that's a lot of people. And I think there's nothing wrong with that to a degree. Obviously, you wouldn't make you wouldn't be uninformed optimism about things that are, going to affect you in big ways. But just like most people live, in a specific cycle by going back to that emotional change. And when I think about uninformed optimism, I'm exactly in line with what you said. High motivation, there's no friction yet because you've not done it,
That's right.
and the goals feel easy. One of the things we talk about on our team is when we have these interviews, it's easy for me and you to sit here it's 9:20 my time, a little bit later there for you, an hour later. It's easy for me to sit here and say to you, part of this job requirement, Mike, is you got to be in the seat at 4:40 a.m. Well, now you're wide awake and you're like, "Psh,
Sure, that's
no
easy.
problem, man."
Yeah.
Well, correlate that to getting up and having to work out before you go to work because some people have to make that commitment. As yes, there's no friction yet. Come January 1st, alarm is set, clothes are out. Well, what happens when you work all day before and you're exhausted and that alarm goes off at 3:45 a.m. or 4 a.m.? That's when the friction hits. That's when the newness is already even day 1 or 2, you're gonna be like, whew, this is a lot different than I thought it'd be, and the motivation is still there, but it's testy, right? So the uninformed optimism, Mike, I feel is a very key and real emotion that we have. But to me, I think that's actually a good thing to have at times because it breaks up the monotony. That's why when you and I were in certain programs, we knew we had to have an end date to that specifically, but we had to have a next objective waiting for us because if we didn't, we would fall off that cliff. We've reached our objective, so now what? Then what happens? By proxy, we're going to go back to old decisions because they're comfortable. So I think it's great to start with that, but you have to understand the cycle because this is the cycle that I believe personally most people live in. Number one, Mike, was uninformed optimism. So let me give you the next point on the chart. So we start here, right? Here's the uninformed optimism. And then, just like you talked about before, friction hits, the newness starts to wear off. People, we want convenience in today's world. If you don't believe me, check your Amazon cart because you want it today. It's probably coming today or tomorrow. And then you get down here below the line, right? Here's the line. You go below the line and you hit the next point that we all hit, some sooner way than later. And it's called the valley of despair. So tell me a little bit when I say that word, banking off the uninformed optimism, and then bam, next thing you know, you grab that phone off your nightstand. It's 4 a.m. You've not felt the change that you've wanted to felt, even though you're probably not given enough time. So what does that mean to you when I say valley of despair?
I'll equate it back to the uninformed optimism that a lot of people have coming into my business, right? So we're an airline ground handling business. A lot of folks that work on the airline side of the business think, well, that's got to be a lot easier than what I do. I don't know where they get that opinion, but it comes up all the time. And so I used to be on the airline side, and I used to think the same thing. And so we interview leaders from that side of the business to join us. And it is my job. I'm the last stop for every GM and above to try to explain how difficult it is. We've got fewer resources, we've got less capital, we've got lower margins, we've got higher pressures. Our customers expect us to be perfect. Your customers do too, but you've got 10 million of them. I've got one that represents those 10 million customers. If you're not perfect in their eyes, once you destroy your reputation with them, you're done. And so, people in that moment, Shane will say, Got it. Totally understand. I've been in this business for forever. I'm comfortable with who I am as an operator. I get I have to learn financial management, which I never had to do before. That's going to be easy. I'm ready to go. I'll just say it's harder than you think. About 30% of those who come over from the airline business quit within the first month, and another 30% quit within 6 months. Are you sure this is what you want to do? Because it's tough to go back to where you came from. And we'll get the yes, yes, yes. Now the next phase. Still excited, still want to do the job, really excited about the energy, the pace, the culture, whatever. They're starting to realize it's a lot harder than it looks. And this is now the 10th day in a row that I have to be on the road. And I got to be in my operations, and I still have to manage the day to day in the other operations. And I got to control my labor in all operations. And I got this GM who doesn't understand how to do that. And I got to coach him. And it's this idea that, oh my God, what did I do? I've taken on too much. And that's a big life decision where that's really impactful. A smaller life decision, at least it isn't, but it feels like it is in the moment, is in the gym, right? I'm going to commit to running 3 miles every day. We had a friend of ours who did that, and he did that for a long time. And then he realized it was not the best fitness outcome he should have. But just to make that statement, that's what I'm going to do. And you get on to day 4, and now your schedule's jacked up and you can't do it. Or you got to do it super early in the morning and you get that wake up call that you don't want to you don't want to take, whatever. um Man, that is where people start to crumble, right? It's much easier to seek comfort in that moment than it is to push through, and that's where I think we see a lot of the exits that come out of a January fitness resolution.
Yeah, I agree. Fitness is a lot of what we deal with, a lot we what we talk about. And again, there's no truer point right now. And I see a lot of this very firsthand with gym ownership. Is there cyclic. There we go again, Mike, with my
That's all
English.
right.
You understand what I'm saying there?
Cyclical.
There we go. Cyclical. Apparently, I need to stay away from big words in most days. I know what they mean, but apparently I can't say them. Anyways, it's by nature, everybody's got the uninformed optimism big time for fitness in January. Not everybody, but a vast majority of human beings adopt that nomenclature for January, more so than any other time of the year other than right before vacation. Okay, that's number two. Got to get in shape. I got 3 weeks before I leave. Well, guess what?
Yes, good thing you low longer 3 weeks.
That ain't happening, brother.
Yep.
That's a whole nother story. Anyways, but the thing about it is, Mike, is what we're not talking about, and maybe we should, and maybe we needed to run a whole nother cast on this, is what it truly takes to flip the switch. And I'm not sure that you can preach or teach that. It has to be individually done. But until it's kind of like finding faith,
Yeah.
in the higher power.
Yeah.
Until you truly believe and tell yourself no more and mean it, you're pissing in the wind, man. You're going to get to this valley of despair that we're talking about, which is now you're sore, okay, because you hadn't done nothing in a long time. This is inconvenient to me. I'm having to create ways to do this that I didn't think I would have to. My schedule changed. I've got to regroup. I'll start back Monday. Monday never comes. Never comes. Results aren't happening. Man, I'm still looking like the same. How long have you been doing it? 9 days.
Why haven't I lost any weight yet? Why can't I feel my
Um,
ratings change?
I tell the people in orientation, I was like, here's the reality of the truth. We're doing some, 4-week challenges and stuff like that. I'm like, if you're sitting here listening to my voice right now and you think, and then 4 weeks, I can magically solve all your problems, then I would be standing on a stage with about 10 million people in front of me, not 20. I have no magic wand. This is the starting point of the gate. And this is a marathon that we're going to take one step at a time. And if you're willing to walk down that path with me over the next 4 weeks, which will turn into 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, I can promise you change. But that's the only way it's going to come. Because what happens, Mike, is when we get to this point, uninformed optimism, we're excited. How many people tell me how excited they are that don't make it 4 weeks? Over half. I tell them in the orientation, I can draw a line right down the middle of this room, and I will not see half of you guys after your first workout. I want to see all of you. Tell me how to fix that, and I will, but I won't. It's too hard for me. You're going to convince yourself. So we get to the valley of despair, Mike, and we've got two choices to make. Okay. We push or we give up. That's it. Because those are the only two outcomes that's at that crossroad. Now, what happens, Mike, to most people, and I say this unfortunately, they give up. And guess what happens? You restart this cycle 10 times a year, 20
Yeah.
times a year, five
Yeah.
times a year. All right. You get to March, and guess what? You got a vacation coming in July. So what do you say? Uninformed optimism. I'm going for it. You restart. And what does that build? What does that do to you
Well,
self consciously?
yeah, you just create failure after failure after failure after failure. You never stack wins. When you create that failure, you convince yourself it's not for you. Next thing you know, you look back and you're 60 and you haven't worked out since you were 25 because you thought it wasn't for you, and now you can't get off the couch. And that's what we're trying to prevent here is keeping people from harming themselves through bad decisions. If you can be informed, if you can push through when you get to that gate. I'll back up on uninformed optimism. I think it's a really good thing. I think you said that too, but I think it allows you to say yes to things you should probably not say yes to. But if you follow through, will be a major positive game changer for the rest of your life. When I was 275 pounds, I should not have said yes to Byron Ovenstone running me up and down stairs with a barbell on my back, but I did. Stupid. But as I got better and able to do that, life changed in a big way for me. But I think that uninformed optimism leads to that point of despair, and then it's what happens in that valley. What happens there? Do you have the personal strength to do it, or are you surrounded by people who will pull you through it? And I think those are the only two ways out, frankly. And that personal strength to do it is rare. It really is. It's so much easier to give up. And that's why we always talk about, the groups that will help you get to where you want to go. This not that you owe anyone anything, but when you feel like you have a obligation to somebody else along the way, it's easier to keep going because when it's just you and the obligation is just with you, it's easy to say no. But when you owe to the fact that you got to look somebody else in the eye and tell them you didn't do it, or they're just going to know, that's that keeps you on that track.
Right. So one of the things, Mike, we talk about the valley of despair. It's and then the repetition of that. You could almost call that a negative feedback loop because that's what you're creating. You're creating negative feedback to yourself that you were unwilling to stick to what you said you were going to do. Now, multiple things happens when that happens. One, you let yourself down. Your family's watching you. Your kids are watching you. Your coworkers are watching you. And again, who you can say who cares about some of that, but it's not just you're letting down, especially your family. You
Exactly.
know, you're reinforcing the negative feedback loop. It's those decisions that can propel you into a different stratosphere of life. And it's as simple as a fitness win. I tell people this all the time. Fitness changed my life. It did. One decision can change your entire life when you get to that valley of despair and you say, you know what? I'm not giving up on myself this time. And even if you don't make it in that day, so what? Tomorrow's a new day. And I think that's another thing that people can't get past. You don't have to wait till the next week to restart. It's just one. You told me something one time that stuck with me, whether you meant it to or not. I was talking about some decisions I had been making that were not the best for me nutritionally or whatever I was doing. Like I was on vacation. I was on vacation. And sometimes I get tripped up. And you said, brother, that's 7 days out of 365 that you normally are in compliance. I think you're doing all right. And I agree with that. And it's just I see people get so close. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. I see people get so close and they give up. I'm like, no, no, you're right there. But you've got to make some other changes. So learning how to get to the valley of despair, Mike, and making the decision to push through to the other side is going to be monumental. And what is that going to lead to? Which takes us into our next point. Two things before we bring up the final piece of the chart. This typically is the decision point. We talked a little bit about this during the podcast or during the pre-show. And I got tickled with you because January 1st fell on a Thursday. Not me and you. necessarily. Like I had a specific goal I was doing to where I was actively not training on purpose. Um, but you had gone into sorry, I'll put this somewhere. You had gone into saying, January 1st, falling on that Thursday, everybody did said what? I'm going to wait till the following Monday. Right. So we already started delaying what we said we were going to do. And that's okay. Right. But let's assume everybody started on Monday. Well, guess what? Now we're entering in to the middle of the month cycle. And this is reality, Mike. You said it during the pre show. You did some research on this, which I'm going to let you speak on. It's amazing. So, what did the research tell you?
Yeah, it says the second Friday of the new year, which because if you skip the first Friday because that was a Thursday and call it Monday, will be this Friday. Today is January 14th, as we record this. Hopefully, have it out by January 15th. So if you're listening to this on the 15th, tomorrow is what is colloquially, I can't say the word either, commonly known as Quitter's Day. What's Quitter's Day? That's when people give up. It's like, okay, I did this for a week and a half, but it didn't work. I missed 2 days here. I didn't do this there. I don't feel good. I'm sore. I just don't want to anymore. I'll get back to it in February, whatever. Quitter's Day is in 24 hours from now if you're listening to this on Thursday. You're going to be in the valley of despair. You're going to have a decision point to make. What decision are you going to make?
Yeah, I think, and you're right. It is typically already the point of the tipping scale to where people say, "No, not ready for this yet." Right? And we can go a little deeper into it, and maybe we won't get into it in this show, Mike, but talking about trying to stack too much in the beginning. Practical, maybe that's going to be another show that we can do after this one is just practical solutions for achieving wins. Because I am a full believer that a lot of us put ourselves into the valley of despair faster because we try to do too much at once.
Well, and part of that, Shane, is what people do when they don't do well. They're embarrassed for themselves. They're also embarrassed for all the people around them that they said they were going to do this thing and then they don't. Think about all the guys that we've had in the program who pay us to get them started, to get them down a path. Not January 1st, but any day of the year. Happens any day of the year. And think about I think about all the names of the people that are coming to mind right now that joined our program, that were all in. They were joining us for group calls. They were fired up. They had motivation. They're doing it. And then suddenly they're not working out and you're texting them or you're sending them notes in the app and they're not responding. And so you call them, they don't answer. And it's like 3 weeks later, after you hit them 3,000 times and said, "Are you okay? Do I need to send the cops out to your house?" They say, "Yeah, I was just embarrassed. It fell off and it." And the mission here is that embarrassment is because you put yourself in too hard of a situation to begin with. No one expects you to be perfect. If you expect yourself to be perfect, you can't win. So if you miss a day, big deal. You miss 2 days, big deal. Go on vacation, you miss 7 days, big deal. Get back on the bus, get back on the bike, whatever it takes. And that's the piece that's the decision you have to make is a little bit of a problem in that decision point doesn't create a lifetime of failure. You have to recognize that. A little bit of a problem is cool. Understand what the problem is, address it, and get back on it.
Agree with that. And I would like to kind of reframe that and put some parameters around what we have said, because I agree with you. People don't quit because they're weak. They quit because their optimism was uninformed
Yes.
and they didn't push through the valley to get to the other side. That's why people quit is the motivation basically fades because that's what that reality check means. When you talk about quitter's day, here's the reality check, Mike. Your motivation's probably already waning. It doesn't take but a couple of weeks for that to wear off. Go to any gym and they're either going to have a 21-day or a 28-day trial at the longest. You know why? Because the motivation's gone by then. I tell everybody this, you'll know after your first workout whether you like this or not. It doesn't take you that long, but when we do the longer trials, we're trying to develop a routine, a consistency, to let you see that you can build consistency in this. This will work. But so we're at the reality check, the wall, right? The valley of despair. Here's the reality check. Motivation's faded. Results still hasn't shown up the way we thought they would. And now the work is real. So this is our first real decision of the year when we're talking about fitness. This is it. So we made the decision to start. That was preloaded. We preloaded that before the first of the year came, right? We didn't just to say, oh, hey, damn, I didn't even know it was January. Yes, let's do this. You knew that coming in. So that's a preloaded. So technically, Mike, this is your first real fitness decision of the year. It's all right. Have I restarted or have I started something that's sustainable or I'm going to have to quit and restart this again later? Does this feel productive to me? Have I been successful? Is this accomplishing the goals that I set out to do? So my point to you, Mike, is before you quit, do something as simple as an after action report for the first 2 weeks of your challenge. 2 or 3 points. Have I did what I said I was going to do and to what degree? Have I been successful? Success is just going, right? And then have I seen any results or how do I feel would be a better way to put that. Because that's what I typically ask people when they ask me, when they're in the middle of a specific nutrition challenge or this, that, and the other. I don't focus on the data numbers as much. It's tell me how you feel. Because to me, that's the driver. Well, I feel great. Okay, then why do you care what the numbers say so much?
Yeah, the
Because
one
eventually that'll come.
yeah, well, that's how it works, right? And we've all been through this when you're chasing a goal, whether it be strength goal or a body weight goal or whatever in the fitness world. It there's these plateaus that you just seem like you can't break through, but if you just stay consistent, it pops eventually. Pops eventually. It's just math. It's science. It has to. But I was going to say, the worst part about that after action review, though, for most people, Shane, is they will justify why they shouldn't continue in that review instead of answer what success they've had and what they should do to continue. And so we talked about that last cycle. Self justification is the strongest emotion of the human spirit. And so if you're going to do it, you got to be objective. You can't be subjective in deciding I'm already going to quit. So I'm going to do this after action review, convince myself I should quit. Like it was really hard. My shoulders hurt. I'm going to end up dead in a month if I keep this up. All BS. What were the success points? What were the things that you could have done better that could have delivered a better outcome? What were the things that if you didn't have to do them again, ever again in the rest of your life, you'd be super happy? But what benefit did they provide you, even if they were terrible? And so those are the questions you should ask yourself in an after action review, not, you know, uh, and the other things. Do I sleep better? Do I feel like I'm more active? Do I feel like my heart rate's improving? Do I feel like I've got more energy, et cetera? Those are important. But forget about the aches and pains. Forget about the early mornings that are hard on you. Forget about, should you plan other things around to make those easier, right? So I don't mean to go on about this, but it's too easy in that AAR to just quit.
No, that's fair. And that's
So
a very solid and profound point that I didn't think about because I don't want you to set yourself up for failure by trying to review because you're exactly right. Well, I can't make this work on paper. Well, don't do it if you can, if you feel like you're that type of person. Just talk it out loud because you're exactly right. Because we will self justify. Well, this isn't for me. And another thing we didn't talk about at all during the Valley of Despair. Guess what's surrounding you? Your family and friends that aren't on this same journey.
that's right.
And you know what they're
Some
saying
of
to
them
you
are asking you, why are you doing it? You look
every
like
day.
too
Why are
much.
you getting up at 3:45 to go work out, man? Like I can't even see a difference in you. Like why are you not eating that? That's stupid. I mean, because you're gonna get it
Yes.
nonstop. That is the crabs in the bucket, my friend, pulling you back down because they do not want to see you better yourself over them. And they don't even mean to do it to you, but they're gonna do it. And family is the worst about it. And they're gonna be eating pizza in front of you and tempting you. It's a battle of testimony and a battle of will to survive
Yeah,
because
initially,
you
right?
become the anomaly.
We're at the beginning of this thing, right? So initially that's absolutely true. But I will tell you, if you push through and you get to the 6 month, 9 month, and things do show up in your continence, in how you continence. That's not what I meant. In your countenance,
I've rubbed off on you, dude. Maniacal, eh?
in your countenance, the things show up in your presence, in your how you look, how you act, how you behave. The rest of the world's going to stop trying to pull you down and are going to start asking you, well, how'd you do that again? What do I need to do? Where do I start? What do I change? And then you're over the line. But initially, there's going to be a lot of
Excellent point, man. because you're exactly right. Once you push through the Mendoza line and
Yeah.
you actually start getting the results, then it switches. Then it's like, wait a minute, what have you been doing? The same people that were like, you're stupid. Now you still can't, you can't take, you can lead them to the trough, but you can't make them drink. Right. And that's
I had
still
dinner
the
with a friend last
reality.
Yeah, I had dinner with a friend last night. I'm in Atlanta for work this week, and he asked to meet up. We met up. And he said, "Yeah, look, I took the shot. I was doing Wegovy. I lost 30 pounds. He's a big dude. He's just over 300 pounds now. He was bigger than that before, but he's like 6'4". He's a former college football player, and it's like, well, I mean, I get the strength training. I'm working on that now. Here's what I'm doing. But how do I get the fat off?" And I said, "You know the answer to that question, man. Okay, I'll give you the formula. 40, 30, 30. That's your macro split. Here's your calorie count given your size, whatever. But that's not the question you're asking. You're asking, so where do I get the discipline to do what I'm supposed to do? And that comes from inside. Do you really want this now or not? You're approaching 60. Do you really want to get this under control or don't you? Because soon, talk about getting up off the couch. You're not going to have the opportunity anymore to solve the issue.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's that internal battle. All right, Mike, let's talk about the last point.
Yep.
All right, let's say we get through the valley of despair. We didn't give up on ourselves. We didn't listen to the noise that we've talked about earlier. We didn't get distracted. We pushed through the line. So now we started here. We all get to this valley of despair, and then we go this way or this way. So if we come up and out and above that line again, now what do we have? So I'm going to give you the word again, Mike, and let you kind of let me know what your perception of that is. And now we move into informed optimism. So what does that mean to you specifically?
Now you know what the trials and tribulations are to the work. Now you understand where the pain is going to come from, where the difficulty is going to come from, where the scheduling challenges are going to come from. And now you can say, "Woo, yes, but look what's happening. Life's changing for me. My body's changing. Whatever. I'm achieving my speed objectives or my strength objectives. That is the motivation. Now the process is the motivation, not the outcome. The ability to do those things every day is more exciting than whatever you thought the final outcome was supposed to be. But now you know what the challenges are along the way to do those things every day. And now you start to manage around those things to make sure, to be absolutely damn certain you're going to the gym every day, to make sure you do the fifth rep of the third set without fail. And so that's where the switch is flipped. And now you're moving towards a much better version of where you want to go.
Couldn't agree more. Informed optimism. To your point, we knew discomfort was coming, and now we know when and where to expect it. Because it's not just muscle fatigue; it's mental fatigue. It's all the things that comes along with it. But now we have made that we're informed more about how to handle that better. Right? You have to go through the fire to understand what it's like to get to the other side. My big thing about informed optimism, Mike, is adjust your expectations, not your standards. You could do your AAR and reduce what you said you were going to do and still do what you said you were going to do. I had a situation occur to where I bit off more than I could chew recently, and I hate it more than any human on the planet, but I had to evaluate where I was. I did an AAR in my head and out loud, and I knew, Shane, you've bit off more than you can chew. You've got to readjust and move forward. It also go a step further, Mike. It educated me on my body in ways that I never had been before. So now I know that certain things that I thought would be good for me are not. It has really, really made me think. So my point to that is, without going deep into the weeds about what I've been doing, because that'll take too long, but the point of all that is sometimes when we have to reevaluate and change some things, we've learned a lot in that process that we can apply through informed optimism. Like, I know now what to do differently the next time, and you're going to be able to say the same things. So the main thing is, don't lower your standard, just adjust your expectations. And the last thing is just to stay in motion. Keep moving forward. Do not become stagnant. It's always an evolution. Then once you build, I tell everybody, look, build the foundation first. Because what does everybody want to build? They want the six-pack abs first. They want the steeple. You can't build the steeple without the foundation. The foundation's water.
Right.
Start with water, right? You're probably not drinking enough water. That's what everybody start there. Then add protein. That's next. Then fats. Then let's figure out these damn carbs because that's where you make or break your body, right? That's my opinion in
Yep,
that
no,
order.
no,
But
that's not an opinion.
it,
That's scientific fact, sir.
but that's just it. Build the foundation, stay in motion, adjust expectations. You've made it through the valley of despair, and there's going to be another one. Guess what? You don't stay at the top of the mountain. You got to go back. So you're going to continue that cycle. But Mike, as long as it's a positive feedback loop, meaning that you push through the valley instead of creating that negative feedback loop, it's never going to be perfect. And I think that's another thing that people get lost on. There's a lot of people that are perfectionists. And if they, myself included, if they don't hit the exact marks, they feel like they failed and they quit.
Well, let's talk about that, Shane, because I remember when you sent me a voice text and you said, made an executive decision. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to let the listeners know in the podcast. I got to stop this aspect of what I was doing. And you felt terrible. You probably still feel terrible.
I do.
Because you're a perfectionist. You like, I committed to this. This is who I am. When I commit to something, I do it. Specifically, if it's a physical challenge. And the whole time I'm thinking, okay, but look at everything else you're already doing. You're controlling your macros. You are still working out at an insane volume every single day. You're still lifting weights. This was just one extra thing that you can't fit into your schedule right now, or destroy your business or your family. Those are the options, right? But it's just extra. It's not even necessary to achieve your objectives. It just was this added thing that you put on yourself that doesn't make sense in the current environment. And so my advice is if you're the person who's just starting out a workout and you said you're going to work out 7 days a week or 5 days a week and you found out I can't because I just can't figure out how to make it all happen yet. By the way, you will. You get going 3 days a week, you'll figure out the rest. Um, don't kill yourself because you can't make the 5 or 7 days work, which is what you did. And we talked about that. Keep moving. You're doing great. Keep moving. 3 days a week work. 3 days a week is way better than where you were, which was never a week. So
Absolutely.
just don't let, when you have to reframe, you have to rethink things, feel negative. It's not negative. It's you're solving the problem. That's a very positive.
A lot of people don't quit in the valley, Mike. They adjust and keep moving.
That's
That's
right.
alignment.
That's
You
right.
adjust. I had to adjust. Made me mad, but I had to adjust and I'm still moving. I've not stopped the other things that I was doing. But your point, it's sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves to succeed in areas that we shouldn't. And it comes with a detrimental factor that it can affect us way deeper than not doing a challenge.
Right.
And we have to be cautious of that. One of the things we preach now in our orientations, Mike, is we kind of change gears. I used to be heavy-handed on starting everybody off in one of these challenges with a heavy dose of workouts and nutrition, a little deeper than I probably should have. And what did that cause? That caused overwhelmed people.
Mm.
What do we say now? Give me 12 workouts in a month, 4-week time. You know what that equates to?
Yep. That's it.
Start with 3. Now, if you want to come 6, come. Start with 3 because to your point, 3, even by Kentucky math, is greater than 0. So it is a great landing point to start because what happens if you quit, Mike? Number 1, you got to reset the negative loop. Number 2, it might feel good short term, but what happens? It keeps you stuck long term being exactly the person you said you didn't want to be anymore.
Well, and if you quit when you've gone to a commercial gym and you paid money for it, and I think oftentimes your challenges aren't that. I think oftentimes you bring in people to experience it without expense, so they don't end up in this barrier. Which is if you quit, you paid money for it. Well, now you got a double whammy. Because now you're going to say to yourself, well, those commercial gyms don't work for me. I can't go spend money. So I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to leave. And then I'll have wasted my money. So that's where it gets even worse. Once you've voted with your dollar and then you don't follow through on that vote, that's even harder to overcome sometimes. And that's one that folks need kind of the most help with.
One of the things that before we get into the last little pieces of the podcast is I tell everybody this when I did the orientation Monday night, I said, take a look around the room. I'm giving this away. We shouldn't be able to get people in the building.
Right. We should have security guards blocking the doors.
You can't even give it away, Mike.
Yeah.
And I say the same thing all the time. People that pay attention.
Yep.
If my gym was completely free, it'd be empty.
That's right.
It's weird, but that's the truth. All right. So I'm going to give you categories again, and I'm going to surprise you again. So we didn't rehearse this. So we'll make sure you get them in the right category, Mike. I'm going to give you a sentence, And you tell me, going back to arrogance and alignment, which one you think it falls in. Okay. Moves forward quietly.
That's alignment.
Absolutely. Resists discomfort.
Arrogance.
There you go. 2 for 2, buddy. Grounded in identity.
Alignment.
Boom. Needs validation.
Arrogance.
This shouldn't be hard.
Yeah. But the hard part is recognizing which of those you are. That's the hard
Yes.
part. Not that you don't probably know, but admitting to yourself which of those are you being in the moment. And because look, like we said before, self accountability is one of the worst because you don't want to believe negative things about yourself. And it's not that we want you to reinforce those negative thoughts; it's that we want you to identify them and solve them. And when you can do that effectively on a daily basis, everything in your life changes. That's why we talk about fitness being the gateway to all these other things. It's amazing when you start down the path of fitness and you get disciplined around that, and you start to not be arrogant, but you be aligned, then everything else starts to make more sense to you. And you start to align in other ways. You start to make your bed in the morning. Great book, by the way. If you haven't read that, just make your bed.
That's a good book.
And it starts you start to show up earlier to work, and you start to stay later and outwork folks. Not if you have obligations at home, because obligations at home have to be scheduled and managed too. You start to make those obligations. You schedule them with your family instead of wait for some miracle thing to pop up on the calendar that you want to take everyone to. It's amazing. Can't say it enough. How all this stuff creates not alignment in the gym, but creates alignment across your life.
So one of the things talking about, arrogance and alignment and good job on the little exercise there is arrogance resists discomfort, alignment accepts it, right? There's a big difference in understanding the two. So Mike, let's go into some practical check-ins for anybody that might be listening about what they can do to help them understand and navigate the emotional change cycle. Again, uninformed optimism, which typically, okay, we won't say 100% of the time, typically will lead to a valley of despair at some point. What happens at the valley of despair is you either quit, restart the cycle, or you come out on the other side with the informed optimism. So, question number one that I would pose for someone to either think about, write down, and answer: am I quitting or just uncomfortable? Can you, because you can talk yourself out of quitting if you just say, is this just uncomfortable right now? Give yourself a chance, I guess is what I'm saying here, because before you quit, have the conversation with yourself and say, all right, I know this is uncomfortable, but can I move past that? You know, it's understanding the difference between the two instead of just saying, I'm done with this, and giving yourself a chance. You know, I'll say the next one and kind of let you speak to it, Mike. Am I chasing motivation or am I living aligned?
Yeah, we've talked about this all day so far, right? I mean, this is one of the things where we motivation gets us started, but then and there is some arrogance involved in that because you're doing that uninformed, right? And then it's the when you become informed, you start to figure out how do I get more aligned. And so, you know, if you can answer that question, am I chasing motivation or am I aligned? We talk about this a lot. Is if you're looking for external validation to keep you going, it's going to be a problem. That external validation, whether that be the mirror or whether that be your friends or whether that be people in the gym noticing how much more weight you're lifting, they don't notice. They don't care. They're busy on their own stuff. It's you have to find this in personal alignment. You have to find this inside yourself and get lined up around it, because the challenges get real. You do develop an ache or a pain. You do have sore muscles. You do have difficulty in your schedule. You do have push and pull. You do have friends and family that are trying to talk you out of it. And if it's not who you are, and it's really just to gain somebody's acceptance, it's too easy to give up. It's gotta be who you become.
Yeah. Last one of the practical check-ins, I would say, and that was a good answer. I appreciate it. Is if I don't quit today, what does tomorrow look like? Again, giving yourself another look in the mirror and say, we play a little short clip of Jelly Roll in our orientation now. I mean, the man was 560 pounds, setting himself up for death early, right? I'm not, it's just not good. You can't sustain that long term. And he talks about how he reached out to Gary Brecka and, you know, he didn't even know who he was. It's funny, and he told him, he said 10,000 steps a day. And he said, he said, "Man, I can't walk 10,000 steps a day." So what did he do? He started with 1,000, half a mile. And he talks about it. And he said, "I've told my family over and over again that I was going to make a change, and I never stuck with it. But for some reason, he flipped the switch." And he said, I don't know if you've heard this. It was on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's just a little excerpt. And it's powerful because he says, get up the day I'm supposed to start. And he said, it's piss and rain, just pouring down. He said the kids were like, "Hey, just, wait till it clears up or do it on the treadmill." And this is where the true moment for him occurred at this exact moment.
Make that decision.
This
It's just
was when the switch flipped. He said, "No." He said, "I went and put my stuff on." And he said, "I got out in the rain." And he said, "I did it anyway." And he said, as I was coming back up the hill, he said, "I have a big hill that I have to climb." He said, "My family was all outside cheering for me because did what I said I was going to do." He said, "I never looked back." In fact, the day he was shooting with Joe Rogan, he had just ran a 10K before he came to shoot the podcast. The man has lost you know, 300, he's lost 300 pounds. And he started with 1,000 steps a day, and he didn't give up on himself. And I think there's power in that because there's a lot of people just like him that are in the position, Mike, and quitting is not an option because if you continue to quit, you're going to give up on yourself long enough till there's no turning back. These are just words that you and I are saying, but there's eventually a point in your life to where your unhealthy decisions will catch up to you. And it will impact you and your family. You think it's expensive to get a gym membership? Dude, I got sick in Florida because I refused to quit eating raw oysters when they're not in season. You know how much my medical bill was for one ER visit? $17,000. What? Think
Yep.
about getting diabetes.
Yeah.
How much that shit cost?
You know,
I mean, I don't want to get down preaching on people and being down, but it's just to the fact that one day you've got to flip the switch. And if you don't, your tomorrow looks a hell of a lot different than today.
well, and I think,
So,
you asked the question, if I don't quit today, what does it look like tomorrow? And that's still a little motivational. That's still a little aspirational. But I like where you're going now, which is if I do quit today, what does it look like tomorrow? Because that's realism, and you better get aligned around that. You better be willing to say, look, if I continue down this path, I know where I'm going to end up, and it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad physically, emotionally, medically, financially. Admit that to yourself. Just admit it. And then you're going to find the alignment to get things fixed. I've got a poster in my gym. I've got a couple of them. Try to stay motivated myself from time to time. And the poster says, when you feel like quitting, remember why you started.
remember your why. I say it all
Yeah.
the time on the mic in the gym.
Yeah.
And if you're embarrassed, you'll get over being embarrassed.
That's right.
I'd rather be embarrassed than dead
That's exactly right.
because that's such a powerful emotion that I hear all the time. I was just too scared to come in. I was embarrassed. Embarrassed of what? We want to help you. We
Well, in
don't
those
care what you look like.
facilities, maybe a community like yours, which is very supportive and very engaging, or your local YMCA. Those communities, the big dudes who are in that YMCA, when you walk in and you're fat and you can't lift 30 pounds off the ground, they want you there. They want you to improve. They don't look like it because they look like they're angry and frustrated. But if you ask them a question, they'll be the first ones to help you. And a
Absolutely.
community like yours, Shay, I mean, everybody there started somewhere, and everybody there loves the newbies that come in and are trying to get their act together. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's hard to get that in your head to believe that's true, but it's absolutely true.
One of the things that I try to preach is no matter if it's day one or day 1,000, I'm going to treat you exactly the same every day you come in my gym. Every day. It's the same because I want you to succeed. And that is a genuine emotion that I truly believe that you and I both hold is we want to help people succeed.
It's the only reason we do this.
The application, it's just like reading a book or listening to a motivational podcast. If you listen and read something and you don't apply, you might as well have just been death scrolling instead of listening. You have to apply things. And I feel like somebody stopped me in the parking lot the other day, a former gym member. And he said, "Man, I used to listen to your podcast." He said, "Man, everybody's got a podcast these days." Maybe he's right. But the reality of it is there are a lot, and there's a lot of good ones. Apply what you hear or you're wasting time. And to the point of that today, Mike, as we move into the closing posture, is you are reaching to the point to where you have to make confirmation of who you are and who you want to be, thus remembering your why. Everybody had a reason for making this resolution. What was it? That's what should be at the top of your paper. I don't care if you have to write it on there every day. Whatever you got to do to remind yourself of what your why is. Take a picture of your kids and put it somewhere. Because if you want to see those grandbabies, you better start making real tangible decisions, because you won't. Not necessarily always true, but you're going to have complicated path. We teach Fit Body Forever clients, our 55 and older class. We teach practical moves like we do snatches. I tell them, that's just like picking your grandkids up and off the floor and up over your head. We're training you to do that so you can apply years of your life to enjoy your grandchildren. When we do this move with bands, it's like opening the cabinets on your drawer and taking dishes out. Practical, mate. Practical movements, staying in motion, staying aligned, and staying true to who you are. Because the problem I'll say is most people repeat January all 12 months of the year.
Mhm.
They do. Aligned people move through January into February and they stay in motion through the entire year. I sent you a picture of my calendar the other day. Was you proud of me?
I'm super proud. I couldn't believe it. Look at this guy. He's got everything ticked and tied. It was great.
That's not easy.
Oh,
For
yeah.
me,
It-
you've been doing it so long but for
like
me,
all
that
like
was
all things, it will get
painstaking.
easier though. It will get easier.
But how much I enjoyed that. It's like, this is great. Like, I'm not forgetting stuff. Like, people were like, wait a minute, you remember that? Like, yeah, I got it in my calendar. Duh.
Oh, you? Yeah.
Mike, my point is, and I'll kick it back to you for some, just your closing thoughts to kind of counter what I'm saying is I didn't mean to take a turn and be such aggressive, but that's the reality of the situation. You can get punched in the mouth and either take it or you can run away and pretend it didn't happen. But right now, a lot of people need to get that punch. They need the gut punch. I can't be this direct when I'm staring at people for an orientation. Everybody would leave. But the reality of I'm not telling anything that's untrue. Don't restart, realign, and keep going is how I want to put a bow on that closing statement for myself. I'll kick it over to you for some final thoughts here.
Just say that that's the best way to reframe that in your mind. Every time you tell yourself you're restarting, that means you're admitting you failed. Nope. You're just evaluating and realigning. You're not restarting. You're continuing the mission that you started already. This is so true for everything you do in life. Um, Everything you start, whether that be you're going to go take a welding class, or you decide you want to go learn how to cook or how to be a better photographer, or you're going to read a book or whatever. Everything you start, why'd you start it? If you started it because you had an outcome that you wanted to achieve, then you keep going. You keep reframing when it didn't work the way you wanted to, and you redesign. You keep going. And fitness is so critically important because it means your longevity and your health span, not just your lifespan. But it's also so important because it creates that mental fortitude, that strength when you do reframe and you keep going. That I can overcome even the hardest things that really bother me. I can keep going. And when you can do that in that context, you can do it in any context. And so, Shane,
Absolutely.
great concept, great discussion, and really appreciate you bringing this one forward this week.
Yeah, man. So, final sentence takeaway, Mike, is you don't need more motivation, which is what people think they have to find. You need more informed optimism. Mike, good podcast, buddy.
Good podcast. Thanks
Good to
for
see
doing it
you.
with us.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
You're looking dapper in your office this morning. I look like I've
It's
been
not
on
the
a.
best podcast studio in the world. It's kind of boring, but
You know what though?
it is where the work gets done.
you locked it in, and you got it done. Doesn't matter where you're at. I
Yeah,
appreciate you being on here, man.
you bet. Good to see you, Shane.
Well, Mike, let's close this baby down.
Yes, sir.
Where can someone find this fine podcast?
First and easiest place is to check out our website at www.leadershipignitionteam.com. On that main page, there's links to all different kinds of podcasts. But if you go to YouTube, if you go to Spotify, you go to Apple Podcasts, we're there. Check out our Instagram, our LinkedIn, our YouTube page, our Facebook page. We've got links to all this stuff there, as well as all the other things we can help you and your teams with. We love doing this stuff in front of groups. We love communicating and creating excitement amongst teams. And so invite us to come and talk to your team.
Mike, thank you for that, sir. Thank you for a wonderful podcast. And, sir, as always,
Let's
let's
get
get
lit.
lit.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Ignition Team podcast. Go to our website at www.leadershipignitionteam.com to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, engage with us, and find again favorite podcast networks, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.